game number 5. When we saw that replay in slow motion multiple times, I'm like, man, if Keen wasn't outputting that amount of damage on the Jace, they would have lost that fight. So maybe a Nautilus ban, maybe a Jace ban, or even a Jace first pick for Zeus.
I think the first pick for Zeus is definitely where T1 are planning to go. And this forces Kwangdong to have a really rough time here on red side, and why I suspect that if they lose this or any game, they will pick blue side away from T1. Because you still have to deal with the Zeri, you still have to deal with Faker's Twisted Fate. And there's a lot of priority picks that T1 have, and they will show that they have such a great mastery of. And the Jace being one of them, T1 kind of leading the charge in that regard. Take away the Caitlyn now, and I wouldn't be surprised if T1 ended up grabbing either the Jace or the Twisted Fate here. T1 do not have to ban it. They're on blue side. Could take away something like the Gragas even right here, and I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, maybe you take away the TF if Faker doesn't want to play it and leave a couple of those other big picks available for the first pick. They are going to ban LeBlanc here, so that has been something that was perma-banned by DRX against Fate after his recent performance against DRX in the best 3 before playoffs.
Yeah.
And definitely one of the best champions for Fate at the moment, and they will take that away as well.
Yeah. Twisted Fate is banned, means the first pick Jace is available, but we did see that Keen was prepared for this pick. And it's, you know, certainly one that he, when Gragas is available, feels pretty comfortable into the matchup here. Priority will be on Owner's Lee Sin instead here in this first draft.
Yeah, I think that's fine too. You know, like Owner's Lee Sin is kind of insane. Does mean that the Jace is sticking out as a potential pick. It will be hovered. We'll see what they do decide to go for, as the Xin Zhao is now the hover for Alum.
Xin Zhao here to the Lee Sin matchup has a little bit more power in ganking in the early parts. Isn't as reliant on his ultimate as Lee Sin does, or is rather. So depending on the lane matchups, does have some extra power. And I think they'll take the Jace with this too. Feeling very comfortable about picking this one up blind right now. I don't know if you want to do this one blind. I think just kind of a throwback to this one being played by Keen in Game 4.
They're like, hey, you might want to worry about this pick. But there's no way they're just going to blind that pick. And Leona is actually going to see some high priority here for Hoyt. Not going to go for his other big pick, the Rakan, just yet. And they will pick this up.
Rakan into the Lee Sin, kind of a risky pick because it makes it more difficult for him to flank. But instantly, Zeus will say, thank you for the gift. I will take this Jace immediately into this composition. There's no, word yet on any sort of, mid or bottom damage and how the range is looking just yet here. But Tom Kench as well.
Big engaged support here for Keria. A huge power pick. And I say it facetiously, but also he is kind of ridiculous on this pick. So another comfort pick here for T1.
And what's so interesting about these drafts so far is they're not 80 carry centric. So as our last series was, right? As the Gragas does have to be picked here or it will be banned away. And when you don't have a Corki like we've seen in the past, you don't want to be picking the Ornn, which was also used as a counter pick to the Jace by Kwangdong Freaks, also very strong into the Xayah. But yeah, that series was defined by Teddy Deft. The misfortune we saw, the Xayah priority for Deft, but neither of these teams will pick up an 80 carry in the first phase. And it's kind of a tricky second ban phase right now with so many of them available. Would you rather try to limit Fate's mid-champion pool, or do you want to shut down Teddy? For Teddy, the answer is going to be taking away that Varus pick we've already seen from Guma.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at the 2 drafts already. Kwangdong Freaks, they have a whole heaping amount of engage here. And on the side of T1, they have the poke. They have a lot of disengage with Lee Sin kick, that Tom Kench, obviously, for Devour. I think that Kwangdong Freaks might be thinking about maybe Kaisa, potentially. Don't know if you really want to blind pick that, but Faker has done it before. And it could offer a lot of AP poke as the game does come along. So you see the Varus is taking away that lethality. Varus can be very strong with the Jace just to support that poke.
The Varus is also really strong into something like a Karma lane. Oftentimes the Varus can control the early parts of that lane. Ezreal, counter pick, we've seen so much with this champion. Gumayusi loves it. The misfortune will be taken away here too. But the
we are picking Xayah.
Yeah.
That's what they said.
The focal point here for T1 becomes a little bit more complicated to divulge because you've taken away another strong pick for Fate here in this Vex. But it's also one of the soft counters to the Ahri that Faker has found so much success with. You have a Jace, you have an Ahri, you remove some of that vision. I mean, it becomes very difficult for Kwangdong Freaks to play around the mid game. See if Faker will get his hands on that one here as Teddy looking to take the potential Xayah pick is like what I was thinking he was going to do, but covers the Jinx and will lock that one in for more range here against what already is a pretty long range comp with the Jace.
Yeah, so no Xayah. Some of the counters being taken away in the ban phase made me think of that, but just wanting to have something that isn't just totally outranged by, Jace and other poking champions. As what are we going to choose here for Gumayusi? He's like, maybe Cog wants the pick. No, looks like he will be going for the Xayah himself. And Xayah, normally a short-range carry as we know her, but with the lethality build that we see all the time now, the Feathers, they have some pretty long range, and there's that Ahri you were talking about.
Tough call here now for Kwangdong Freaks. The mid Kai'Sa you hinted at, certainly a possibility here, but it's very fragile in this composition. T1, on the other hand, they don't have great hard engage to punish this champion in lane against Ahri. He's not going to have a great time, but he's not going to be pushed in. He's not going to be finding himself losing 20 waves of farm. But the Victor pick I like a lot more, and this is what I was going to mention before that was hovered, is that considering already that you have the Jinx pick here, you have some poke, you have some great fighting in the neutral, you have Gragas cast you can use to engage, Victor is going to clean up house extremely well. And Xayah, yes, she can escape from a lot of different engages, but she's not going to be able to outlast in a team fight Victor Jinx damage. She just will not be able to keep up if she's going for that lethality build that's so popular right now. So T1, their composition at first looked like maybe it was going to be more poke-oriented. Now it's about getting ahead early, getting that vision control, and using that to actually get Shock Blast damage through, get Ahri pick potential. Because in a straight-up 5v5, in the neutral, if Kwangdong Freaks have enough vision, they do outdamage you, they outlast you in a team fight.
Yeah, very true, as the coaches will bow to each other, and we will get this game on the way. A big moment here. I think if game number 1 is a landslide, then, the 3-0 almost definite. But I'm looking forward to seeing if Kwangdong can actually fight them here in game number 1. Try to put a stop to the tidal wave that is T1.
T1, in this laning phase, they don't have to, smash it, but we've seen so many games where Karyaguma actually gets so ahead in the early part of things that they just win the 2v2 so hard that the lights go out. So here we go, we're going to the...
All right, a little bit of struggle here, guys. A little bit of a stumble Reno as we get into this game.
Looks like one of our camera setups crashed, so we're back in now. Don't worry, guys.
Look at all the jerseys, though. It's so cool. It looks like we finally got there. Game number 1 of the first semifinal. Of course, officially titled Playoffs Round 2.
Yeah, essentially semifinals, of course. We will have our second one tomorrow between Genji and Damwon Kia. But yeah, the 2v2 is a place where sometimes Gumayusi and Kerry have just won in matchups they're not even favored in, just because their opponents make a mistake, and the punish from these two players is so good that they end up getting 2 kills for Guma in the early game, and then we don't even get to talk about the game because it ends there. And with Xayah, certainly a pick where that can happen if she gets ahead so quickly because her damage is so valuable early, especially getting that early Dirk online. And T1 has been a team that has dominated macro in the early parts of the game as this ward is avoided. They did not see Keria in this brush.
I think Keria is waiting for the scanner. It's almost available here. And they will get there now. Give this over to Faker. So we'll return to the lane. So totally fine there. Deny some vision. Keep them in the dark as to where exactly Owner is going to path.
Yeah, pretty important information to gather in the early stage. This first Rift Herald with T1's composition is going to be so critical. If they can get it, get turrets off the map, remove some of that vision. I think that's really the milestone we're all looking for here in the early part of this game. it's not going to be as bloody on paper as our last series was with Guangdong. So just kind of setting the stage here.
Some big numbers, obviously, when you go
12-1.
18-0. It's pretty important. Yeah, owner's Lee Sin, I really love that first pick. Can go with pretty much anything. And also carry a 5-0 on the Tom Kench.
And the Fate 0-4, I think, is in part due to Fate holding on to this pick as it fell out of favor in compositions that didn't really utilize it very well. But we will also, have to remind everyone that Fate has been more successful on assassin picks than control mages this season.
Boy. This lane is in the perfect spot as, no flash comes in. There's the Q, and Fate is going down. First blood given over to Owner. Faker not even going to miss the cannon.
Yeah, well, what a start. That's the first kill on the board. Goes over to Owner, so he'll be the one to pick up the gold, but it does remove Fate from the lane. Will take his teleport away early. So much of the early control of this lane, the prio that's going to follow, is going to really affect how this Rift Herald play comes through. So in the early parts of this lane, you can kind of stutter step around and be obnoxious like this as the victor, but if you do push it all the way against a champion that has guaranteed CC, all she has to do is walk up and charm you, and you will die if the Lee Sin is nearby, because it's guarantees he hits the Sonic Wave, and guess what? Owner doesn't miss.
Yeah, and the thing is, you could say, like, well, why didn't he just flash the charm? But with Owner having red buff and flash and being Lee Sin, you're probably not getting away anyway. So he just decides that. And the biggest part of that is that the lane positioning is so good. Faker pulls it into a position. Fate's not able to get the crash in, and it's the most awkward timing for Fate. And that's where Owner strikes. And again, some things just look super clean. And that's what T1 ends up doing a lot of the time. Yeah,
I mean, he took Eri, and he wants to be obnoxious in this laning phase. He wants to push that lane in and force it to crash, but Faker handles it so perfectly that it doesn't work out for him. And it's a really painful start to this game, too, because getting Faker accelerated is kind of worst-case scenario going into the mid-game. I mean, now Faker is like, I could trade, I could proc electrocute, and you can't do anything about it because he's a level 5 victor.
Yeah. Trading back okay in that case, but he has to be chugging that corrupting potion just to try to stick around in the lane. And it's important he holds on to his flash so that when Faker hits 6, he actually has the ability to be a champion in that lane.
Yeah, as best as he can. The big spike here for Fate in this game will be much later on. And scary to lane against Keen, man.
Zeus has passed the Keen test in the past, but playoff Keen, definitely another story. It looked very, very good in that series against DRX a couple days ago.
This year, playoffs Keen in particular, going to stand out. Keen's Gragas play in that second game was phenomenal. In his third game as well, where I believe he picked up POG, it was just actually crazy. We saw some of those highlights in our points of the match video. As the Rift Herald is still 2 minutes away, but the wave state, the lane state here for Faker is so incredibly good that he's going to have prio set up for that. And it becomes very difficult for Guangdong to actually contest this early, which is exactly what T1 want. They've been a team that have controlled Herald over Dragon. We saw those stats earlier. And a team that's obsessed with getting first turret blood, getting that early gold, taking Vision away, taking out the mid turret. And these are things that are going to make Fate's life so miserable in the mid game. Cass?
Oh, there it is once again. He's dunked right into Keen's arms as he's waiting for him. A lot of damage coming out from Zeus as Elam is trying to run this down, but Owner in position to save him as Zeus doesn't even have to flash to get out of that one.
Yep. Very impressive, setup here for Owner, reacting very quickly. Zeus not overreacting. And now Cask is down if they wanted to re-engage.
Yeah, and they got that entire plan. Zeus has a lot of health back, but there's a nice little pop of the barrel. And they're just going to kind of posture up there, not going to amount to too much. As I say that, though, Elam and Keen are waiting here on the ward, and Zeus just says, nope, no thank you.
Not interested. And Keen will be able to, of course, crash this wave in, but not going to be able to force any kills. Notice the vision setup here, by the way, top side for T1.
Body slam used. He's actually sticking around.
Faker is, I was going to say, missing as well, so Kwangdong have to respect this. You know, these are the things that when you have Cryo as Ahri that are so terrifying in the early game, because she actually gets a roam off, which she usually doesn't in most matchups, but if she's ahead, she can actually impact the game at level 6 to an insane degree.
As Jinx Leona, 6 wins in a row here, looking pretty good so far, but again, the bottom lane is going pretty well so far for Guma and Keria. And they're just pushing that in, you know, just being very obnoxious with the Xayah Feathers. And yeah, note the top lane, you know, the first item here for Zeus was the Vamp Scepter, just trying to get some more survivability. And then he does go into double scaling item with the Cull pickup here as well.
There are 3 control wards in the river, just want to point out, as this Rift Herald spawns in 10 seconds. One, not only, you know, sort of scouting out whether anyone's rotating over to Drake, but also to see if someone is going to try to come down and contest Drake. So T1, actually, because of the massive amount of vision control they have right now in the mid-prio, they don't actually have to rush over and force the Herald early. They can actually kind of take their time, crash this wave in, catch Keen backing, and then come over a little bit more slowly and take this out. And I think they were even considering trying to punish a Drake rotation from Kwangdong Freaks, but as the timing works out here pretty well for Kwangdong Freaks, it will be that trade. Guma scouts this out, and they have all the information. Like, this is just something I want to highlight for T1, is there's not one single thing on the Summoner's Rift right now that they do not know about. They know every single thing that is happening. They know exactly where Elim is while they take this Rift Herald. It's set up by Faker, helps leash it there. So Owner takes this out very quickly, and it's going to be a Drake for Herald here, as is the way of T1.
As is the way, and they already do have this nice little 900 gold lead, and they're going to gather more with the Rift Herald. Now that first Infernal Drake definitely going to be pretty nice for the side of Kwangdong Freaks. It's a nice little consolation prize, you could say. A lot of teams, they would just run up as 5 to the Rift Herald and then lose a fight to T1 and just get wiped, and then the game would accelerate even faster. But I like that. Teddy stays bot. LM takes the Drake. They say, okay, well, we don't really want to fight right now. So we'll just take the other objectives on the map, and that's always a better choice.
Keen does not have vision of Owner. Kick, of course, is available, but we'll be able to clear the wave up just in time. Elim's nearby, didn't feel too worried. The question becomes, you know, of course, where does the Herald crash in this game? Because oftentimes, you know, it's about getting your 80 carry ahead for T1, Guma usually when he's on late game scaling champions. Not that Xayah is going to be useless in the late game, but it isn't really a champion you need to push further ahead, especially considering the state of that bottom lane. I think you want to get this turret away from Fate, which will both make Teddy's life harder in terms of farming and Fate's life harder in terms of farming in the mid game. That turret is going to be so valuable. Alternatively, because you have so much control over the top side and mid, you could force a dive onto Keen. I just don't think that's a good idea considering how well Keen on Gragas has handled those dives in the past.
Yeah, definitely could be a little bit scary diving the Gragas as well, even just that champion. So could potentially do it just to try to unlock Zeus on the map. Wouldn't be surprised by that either. It does look like Faker's hanging around this bottom side, so could even just try to pressure as a 4-man and try to go bot, but not going to be the case here, as they'll just continue hanging out here. Only having 1 kill so far, but T1 casually 1,500 gold in the lead.
Yeah, just really pushing their advantages in all of these lanes. As
Zeus is not...
He's not having a good time. The wave state here is so good for Keen. He's forcing Zeus to come so close to him and his turret in order to engage, and the threat of the cask forces Zeus to stay back, and Keen could just keep tossing barrels every time he tries to approach and last hit minion. So Keen is a master of playing this weak side Gragas, especially into the Jace pick, which is why I was saying in the draft, like, we might even see it in first rotation banned on blue side if they want to pick up the Jace early, because he's just so good at this matchup. He's so good at playing weak side, and that's why they haven't been able to make that Herald play on the top side of the map.
That's very true. I mean, he's holding the wave right in front of his turret as well, and it's just so obnoxious when you are the Jace, because the Gragas has so many abilities to just engage onto you, so you never really feel safe, even if you have that range advantage. As this is going to be dropped bot. This is this 4-man rotation down bot I was talking about. They should be able to take out this turret, as it is 4v3 at the moment. Fate stuck just farming under the mid turret, so a lot of those plates going down into the arms of Owner and Guma.
They will also pick up a lot of vision around the bottom river, as well as the blue buff here, that you can see that Kwangdong Freaks are taking very good care to slowly remove. Not doing it haphazardly at all, but will slowly push that away. So much control of the bottom side of the map here. Keen once again looking for another aggressive trade. It's just playing this lane so well. Fate has, found himself in a position where he's only 100 gold behind, despite that early kill, which is very impressive. He's farming extremely well, is laning well against the Ahri. Faker didn't get so far ahead that, he's just not able to play the game. Here's that blue buff I was talking about they set up vision for.
Yeah, and this entire bot side of the map is just T1s, right? Like, there isn't really much that Kwangdong Freaks can do here, and I think it's part of the reason why the score currently is only 1-0 in kills, right? Because Kwangdong are kind of giving a lot away. They are avoiding fights. They're saying, okay, well, we have Victor and Jinx, and we have a fantastic front line alongside of it. We're going to be really strong in the late game. So let's just not try to take fights early on. And does mean that they have to give up some stuff, but the lead so far is definitely pretty fat.
Yeah, you could see it right on the graph as soon as you mention it.
It's pretty thick.
Production was like, let's just show how thick. It's getting thicker all the time. Very slowly, the pace of the lead here, but still, 13 minutes, 1 kill. This kind of a gold lead is exactly what T1 are famous for. They don't need to dominate you and get 5 kills in the early game to get ahead. However, the champions they have leads on in this game right now is not really where they would want it to be necessarily. The Xayah, who isn't getting power in team fights that aren't happening just yet. The Jace, who doesn't really have as big of a lead as he'd like to have here in a lot of matchups. Which means that Kwangdong Freaks can actually weather the storm here despite that massive lead and come up big with the Victor Jinx scaling later on. It's not unrecoverable by any means. If they get this second Drake in a row, that's where you're really feeling great, but they just don't have enough prior. They don't have that bottom turret anymore, so it will go the way of T1. I want to talk about Victor's item here, too. He went for the crown of the Shattered Queen, which we have not really seen in a very long time on Victor, because we just haven't seen a very assassin-based meta until Ahri appeared, right? It is going to be very great against Shock Blast damage as well coming through for Fate. And the name of the game is not really to have that extra Ludens damage or Leandries to burn through tanks with the composition T1 is running. He actually just wants to make sure he could survive long enough to win that longer fight, which is exactly what Kwangdong Freaks' comp is designed to do here. They have a lot of disengage and some, great engage options themselves. But the Victor item choice here I do love quite a bit.
Yeah, sustained damage, just surviving for long enough to try to get out of there. There are a couple of ways for T1 to try to poke it down, but it's not going to be super easy, especially with that front line that Kwangdong Freaks do have to block Shock Blast and stuff like that. Okay, little engage here in the mid lane, but not really going to find an angle. T1 looking to take down yet another objective here. As another huge Shock Blast. That one's going to hit the crown and Teddy. As now,
you don't want to fight this, Kwangdong.
Yeah, you're really just trying to force it if you fight now. T1 get the objective and just back away. Faker over the wall. He's very proactive there. A huge Shock Blast into Keen as well. And there's the root as over the wall goes Keria to his death. Maybe a little bit overzealous there.
Yeah, I think that was definitely a little bit overzealous from Keria. A nice attempt here from Faker, but the charm target he gets isn't the one that you're going to be able to blow up very quickly with a follow-up engage like this. And a lot of damage onto Teddy. I see the idea. I can see why it's so tempting to actually follow up and try to force this fight and take a more massive lead, but it has the opposite effect. In fact, Kwangdong Freaks, despite losing the Herald, will shore up some of that gold deficit here with a traded kill back to that very important late game Jinx. Teddy going to be picking that one up. So Kwangdong Freaks very happy with this exchange as Fate does not have his crown back up yet, and somebody's lurking. He doesn't know. He's safe enough.
Yeah, Owner was here, and I love the zoom-ins from Jonah Strong. Thank you so much for that. So we'll see here once again. Faker's just looking for a pick as you do, and it was fine until Keria decided to just die.
Yeah, it was okay. You're able to get out a flash early, but yeah, don't go that deep. It was Nice attempt. I think if the charm actually hits Ellen, you feel really good about this exchange. You probably blow him up, get the kill, and then get out, but hits the Gragas, so Keen is like, I'm totally fine with this.
Yeah, and I want to draw attention as well to Karia's item builds. He's going Randuins here, and this has been kind of a new thing that we've been seeing in other regions as well. A lot of supports going first item Randuins. It's kind of been met with a lot of raised eyebrows. I'm not really sure about it myself, how much I like it. Obviously, it's more individually focused compared to something like a Lock of the Iron Solari. But it's going to make Keria actually a really tanky engaged champion here on the Tahm Kench, non-ironically. So a lot of trading back and forth here. As Keen is looking for this, he's going to force out the Featherstorm.
The Tahm Kench in this draft, all that thought, Keen.
It's just like never-ending fights, and now it's Owner's turn to jump in and nearly die, but thankfully he has the Tahm Kench behind him.
The role of the Tahm Kench is so interesting in this draft, where Keria once again is just a god-tier hero and will stop his teammates from feeding, but...
but not himself.
Yeah.
Only his teammates.
Only his teammates. But you've committed so heavily now as T1 because you wanted to get a bigger advantage than just the mid-turret with your second Herald, so Fate actually trades a turret, gets free farm here on the side. But going back to the Tahm Kench pick, it's really interesting because at the beginning of the draft, it looked like, oh, okay, like a little bit more survivability for Zeus, you know, somewhat of an engaged champion. We didn't know the direction of the draft just yet. We didn't know if we were going to get the Ahri, but that was clearly going to be the idea. That was the general concept of the draft. We saw the Vex ban come through. And Keria in this game he's kind of tied between two roles. He's both supportive, but he has to be a little bit on the initiation side to follow up on the Shock Blast so Owner can go in and they can actually get those secured kills. Because as we've mentioned many times, in longer fights, you don't win those, especially if Teddy blows up the front line. So I like the Randuins in that regard because it makes it safer for him to save people who are going in looking for picks, like Faker even, but also he survives a little bit longer so Jinx doesn't get excited, and then the fight gets won by Kwangdong Freaks in that war of attrition that you do lose in the longer parts. So it's quite interesting. Maybe if he could do it again, he might have chosen a different support looking at the draft at the end of it. But, you know, now he has to flex it around.
Look at how little T1 care about dragons. Like, Kwangdong Freaks were setting up all this vision. They're like, okay, 5-man, we're going to go in, we're going to take this Ocean Drake. But as it stands, I mean, you're 3 Drakes away from a soul, right? So Zeus teleports top, which, you know, is very interesting. It's a big commitment. Just to continue getting more turrets and trying to get ahead here in gold. And they will absolutely, because it's 2v1 here. They're trying to get on top of Fate. The crown is down. Do they have the damage, though? Keen comes in with his own teleport.
Still has Cask.
As now they're going to engage on a Hoyt, who does have to flash away, and Faker is teleporting away, but
Cask.
Keen is just going to throw a big old barrel on top of him, and down he will go.
Man, T1 are really overextending in this game so many times. They still have a massive lead. They still have removed so many structures. But remember, every kill you give over to these carries on the side of Kwangdong Freaks will add up, especially considering that it's not a Drake lead for T1 in this game either. And with that pick onto Faker, I call it a pick, that punish onto Faker, let's say, Kwangdong Freaks are poised to now take a second one here. And it's Ocean Soul, which is going to be a massive value into this Jace pick if Kwangdong Freaks can actually secure it. Owner, they will block him out. No Sonic Wave onto this dragon for you. And Kwangdong Freaks, 2 Drake advantage right now, or 1 Drake, but 2 in total here, 2 away from that soul is pretty massive, as Fate is able to free farm. And we did see value of Crown of Shattered Queen here. Fate knows there's a possibility Faker's around here, but he's been missing for so long. The Crown tanks up so much of this damage, then he drops his ult, which pushes Zeus away, and Keen has Cask. And so when he teleports in here, he knows he has guaranteed punish on Faker because the rest of his team is rotating over. All he has to do is stop this teleport for Cask. So teleport is also wasted here for Faker, and Teddy picks up the kill.
Yeah.
Like, everything about that was so beautiful from Kwangdong. They gave the gold to Teddy. Like, there's just nothing wrong to say about it.
Teddy now 2-0 on Jinx, and they deny any kind of Ocean Soul timings here from T1 to try to push this game faster. It's looking pretty good for Kwangdong. I mean, you take a look at the gold, and obviously, you would say T1, they have more of the map right now. There's more standing turrets for them, and Kwangdong are behind on that gold, but the scaling that they have in this composition for Kwangdong it's mighty. It is scary. It is a Kraken Slayer Jinx with 2 kills, 2 items already.
And Shadow Flame on the Victor, which is the exact correct choice here, is now Quantum Freaks do have one hole in vision. I was about to talk about how great their vision is. There's one hole here. They do spot out the Baron. T1 want to commit. They have the choke point control, and they've got an Ahri.
They do have okay turn, but not the best. And this is incredibly early as a huge Solar Flare does come in onto 2. Keen is going to be kited back. In goes Faker, and he takes him out and gets out again. As the pick onto Keen will be nice. And now it's 5v4. Faker has one more charge. He's looking for another charm. This time will not land.
Keen being down here is pretty massive because it means that Quantum Freaks just will not be able to turn without him. Their composition is not powerful enough just yet to win a scrappy fight like this. Fate.
He's playing with fire here as the engage comes in. In goes Keria, and down will go Fate. As now the rest of Guangdong gets baited into the fight here. Huge Feather Storm just blows up the Xin Zhao. And that is going to be a couple more kills in the T1's pockets.
Guangdong Freaks had such an opportunity here. After that pick goes down to just walk away, say, okay, we stopped the Baron, let's just get out of here. You know, the follow-up engage from Faker was fantastic, but also part of this is on Fate because he stays way too long. So this is a bit of a disconnect, actually, between the Solar Flare and Keen because the Cask is designed to actually push everyone back towards Guangdong Freaks while also splitting them in the choke. But actually is kind of an awkward, disjointed engage there with the Solar Flare. Fate dodges the charm, but his positioning here is so greedy after they've warded T1 off that with Faker's additional charge, he comes in, they try to grab a charm, still pick him off there with a follow-up from Keria. And there's just so much pick potential on T1's comp that take your wins where you have them. Remember, this is a scaling comp. There's so much standing gold on the map for Guangdong to pick up later if they can win a team fight. But this is not the fight to take. This is not the stand to make. When they walked out of that choke point, Guangdong should have hightailed it out of there.
Yep, definitely agree, especially right after Keen went down. You're losing a lot of your front line, and with the Victor in front of a Leona, that's not the way you want to go for it. And T1, they're stubborn on this Baron. They say, no, we're going to take it here at 23 minutes. We don't care about what you have. And, I mean, everything's available here for the Guangdong Freaks, but the turn, once again, being set up here by T1. The damage is going in. There's the rocket onto Owner. This is going to be close, but Elam's not able to get in. He gets charmed as the engage goes down, but the Devour is there once again to save Faker, and this is going to be a massacre. Faker able to take down Keen. Teddy is getting a bit excited, but over the wall comes Faker again, and he is going to get that charm out to Teddy. This will be a clean ace, and the Baron, and potentially the game end for T1.
Teleport coming through here. They will have to push through this inhibitor and 2 Nexus turrets, but they've got a ton of damage. I mean, this Baron with Baron buff, exactly.
Tank the turrets, keep the minions alive, and you can do it.
They don't have any wave clear without Fate, and I think the T1 have just won the first game of this series. They were able to push their advantages so hard. Forced lose-lose situations for Guangdong. The health bars are low, though.
Okay. I suppose it is a little bit early.
But, I mean, look, whether they kill the Nexus now or not, I think they've controlled this game now to a point which is unrecoverable for Guangdong Freaks. 10,000 gold lead here for T1, and the mid prio that's guaranteed for them for a subsequent Drakes.
Okay.
And
well,
no flash for your Leona.
You got to try for something, as this is Ahri who's about to have ult. So the teleport's used, the flash is used, and 10 seconds until an Ocean Drake, so they might be able to get this.
Yeah, I think you definitely try
Maybe.
for it. I mean, you have to try for it. It's flank teleport here from Faker, but he's going to take a while to get through. They don't have any vision here in this choke.
Oh, God. This is like a horror movie as the kick comes in, and Owner even gets it. He's going to get the Drake, and Faker gets the perfect flank off. As everybody's just getting absolutely melted here. Keria is so tanky with the randoms. He even has a stopwatch at this point. Teddy can do 0 against the Tomkins, and that is going to be yet another ace, it looks like here. Fate getting chased down. And T1, they can just end the game.
They absolutely can. Keria wants to cut off Fate, the only person who can clear waves. Speaking of waves, they are already hitting the last remaining Nexus. Doesn't matter. T1 going to push to end. They forced so many lose-lose fights on Baron. The setup was great. The turn was fantastic. Faker hitting so many critical charms. And that's game number 1 in very